Do you ever feel like you're stuck in a rut with your guitar playing? You're just bored of what you're doing and you don't enjoy it. You find yourself playing the same old things all the time. Well, here are my top 10 tips for getting yourself out of a plateau. Tip number 1 is find yourself a really good teacher. A couple of years ago, I was in a bit of a rut. I was bored of what I was doing. I was playing the same licks all the time. And I mentioned it to my friend who's a professional jazz drummer. He said, "You want to go and see my mate Mike?" So I went to see Mike, and he sat me down. He said, "Okay, so take second position, and I want you to play every major scale, every minor scale, every major arpeggio, and every minor arpeggio in position 2. Instantly in my head I thought, I've never tried anything like that before, and it got me out of my rut, literally with one sentence. So finding a really good teacher or somebody that's at a much higher level than you can give you enough practice material from 2 or 3 lessons to last you a year. Some of the other stuff that he got me doing, I'm still practicing it to this day. So finding a good local teacher, or it doesn't have to be local, if you're prepared to travel, then find somebody that you want to learn from and go and visit them. Tip 2, join a band or an ensemble or start a band. A lot of the time people are bored of playing because they're playing by themselves, they're playing the same old things, the same backing tracks, or just writing the same type of riffs. And when you get into a group, you start feeding off each other and coming up with some new ideas. So go and find some other people you can play with, and it doesn't have to be a commitment. It hasn't got to be we're going to play every week on a Tuesday night from 7 till 11. It can be just a jam once every month or whatever you decide, but getting out and playing with people will make you enjoy it more. Tip number 3 is change your style. So if you are a jazz player, study metal for 6 months. If you're a metal player, study pop or funk for 6 months. You'll learn so many different techniques, so many different ways of phrasing, so many different chords and patterns, and you'll look at the instrument in a completely different way. Tip number 4, review what you're doing with your gear. So I've made this mistake myself, and I still make it, where you spend more time looking at gear, buying gear, trying gear, selling gear than you do practicing. Nobody ever got good at playing the guitar by spending 4 hours on eBay. So if you've got too much gear, just get rid of loads of it, keep the bare essentials and focus on practicing. On the flip side, talking about gear, if you've had the same one guitar for 10 years and the same one amp for 10 years, buying some new gear can give you the motivation to practice. So maybe you should go and buy some stuff. So it depends on your personal situation and your finances and space available and stuff like that. But sometimes buying new gear will inspire you. Other times getting rid of all the crap that you've bought over the last 20 years and just concentrating on 1 or 2 guitars and a decent amp and a couple of pedals and focusing purely on practicing is what could make the difference. Tip number 5, become a Zen master. So what do I mean by this? So quite often when you're playing, you're thinking about something else, or you're thinking about dinner, or you're not really 100% concentrating on what you're doing. So try this little experiment. Pick up your guitar and just play one note. And put 100% concentration into the note. So focus on the sound, on the tone, how it feels when you pick, how it feels with your left hand, how the wood feels against your finger and your hand. And really concentrate on what you're playing. On top of that, record yourself and try and play one thing but to the highest possible standard that you can. So it could be a really simple pattern or a little chord change, but try and make it perfect. And you'll find that quite often, you'll play, but you've got some sloppiness in there and a little bit of you rushing it, or you're pausing too long on things. If you concentrate on playing perfect, just playing 3 chords can give you an hour's worth of dedicated practice. So become a Zen master is my next tip. Tip number 6. Learn a function band set. So go onto a website, find a function band and pick 30 songs from their set list and learn to play all of those songs. And then using YouTube or Spotify and whatever, or your iTunes, play a whole set. It could be a 2-hour set, okay? Because you might not have done something like that for a while, and play all the way through without stopping. So if you make a mistake, keep going. If you forget a part, keep going. Just improvise, because if you were to play a 2-hour function band set, you just got to keep going because there's people there watching and the rest of the band are going. So to try and play, a 30-35 song set without stopping, it might take you a few weeks to learn the set, or even a couple of months. But that can be a challenge for some people, and it can get you out of your patterns of routines because you can't just stop and correct yourself, and you can't play your same old stuff. You have to play the set. So learn the set and play the set, and once you've done that, you will feel as though you've done something decent. Tip number 7. Learn something written for another instrument. So there are a lot of songs with really good saxophone solos, piano solos, violin parts, cello parts, or whatever. Try and figure out by ear or by the sheet music and learn something written for a completely different instrument. This way you're not just playing the same old positions, because a piano or saxophone doesn't play in a pentatonic shape. It will play something completely different, and it will get you out of your normal way of thinking about shapes and patterns and positions, and you might have to completely change the way you're playing to learn that part. So that can get you out of a rut as well. Tip number 8 is look at collaborating with other people online. So if you type in Google musicians collaboration website or something along those lines, you'll probably find loads of different places where there are other musicians looking to team up with other people from all over the world, and you can write music together, you can write covers together and record them, you can jam together. There's so much stuff you can do online now that you don't need to even go in front of an audience, and it will give you the chance to work with other people from all over the world, which will help you. Tip number 9 is give yourself goals and test yourself. So as I said earlier, I was given the task, play every major scale, every minor scale, every major and minor arpeggio in the second position. So I can give myself a test. Okay, by this time next month I want to be able to do that, and I want to be able to do it fluently without making any mistakes, and I want to play quarter notes at 120 beats per minute. So that gives you something to focus on, something to get right, and something that will expand your ability and your understanding of the fretboard. So you could say, I want to play every major and minor scale in 5 different positions by this time next week, or whatever. There are so many different things you can do. I want to play every pentatonic and blues scale in any key, and I want to play them at this tempo by this time. So there are so many different things you can do to test yourself. It gives you a focus to put your mind to. Tip number 10, if you haven't already done it, I would say study towards your musical grades, or study towards performance grades, or some form of formal education or formal certificate. And the reason I say that is because if you've got a syllabus, you can't just play the same old stuff that you always do. You have to learn specifics, you have to learn them in certain time frames, and you have to perform them. And there are various different examination boards, so you can learn a multitude of different grades and different exams, different styles. So you can do an exam in jazz or pop or rock or whatever, and this again will force you to stop doing the same things that you always do and go down a proper learning path. So those are my top tips. I hope you enjoyed them. If you did, and if you think they helped, then leave me a comment and let me know, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.